8:37, and I'm delighted to say former boxer Eric Donovan is with us. How you doing?
I'm very well, Ger. Thanks for having me. Yeah, delighted to be here.
How is it settling with you now that you made your announcement?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying to me like it must have been tough, and do you feel sad and all those things, and there's an element of truth in that. I am a bit sad, and it is tough, but it's the right time, and I'm going out, with peace of mind. I came back in. I turned professional at the start with a load of regrets because I felt unfulfilled, let's say. But I'm going out of it now with absolutely no regrets and peace of mind, and I think it's the right time.
Was it in your head before this fight, or is it after the fight? Because I think it's really important that we talk about the fact you had a baby at the same time as this.
Yeah.
It's a life-changing moment at any stage.
Absolutely, yeah.
But particularly when you're a fighter, and it's such a difficult business. I don't think anybody, unless you've actually been to a fight, you don't really fully appreciate the punishment that fighters take until you see it aftermath. In the aftermath, just how difficult it is for your body to recover.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I'm. What's the story?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a brutal sport. It's really, really tough. And I suppose even though I kind of thought that, like, I kind of knew that before I turned professional, it's still even more difficult than you can imagine, because I was an amateur boxer for years. From the age of 7, I walked into a boxing club, and by the age of early teenage years, I was getting picked to represent Ireland at schoolboy level, so 13, 14 I'm representing Ireland, and by the age of 17 I'm in with the national team, the elite senior team. So and I spent 10 years there, so I was 27, 28 when I kind of unofficially retired from the amateur game. And during that, kind of, I had a 3-year kind of sabbatical. So, but I was watching a lot of boxing, doing the odd bit of training, and I was full of regret, as I said. So I used to ponder down, my mind was pondering back down memory lane from time to time, and I was thinking, I could have done that and I could have done this. It's a terrible place to be, like, for anybody, and I went back into education as well, as you know, and I was studying counselling and psychotherapy at the time, and I graduated with a diploma in 2015. I was very, delighted with that, because that was huge for me, not coming from an educated background, or having any academic skills. That was a huge moment for me, and I said, right, momentum's with me now. I'm going to go for my degree one more year, and really push the bar, and but then I also was kind of what would you say, bombarded with these thoughts of past regrets, you know what I mean, and past near misses and setbacks and all that. And the conclusion I came to was, look, I got to answer this call, because if I don't, I'm going to be living the rest of my life, probably a bitter, angry old man, and that was it. I said, the conclusion was, I can always go back and do my degree, but I can't always go back and box. So at 31, I turned pro when most people are wrapping up their careers at 31, and into a game of, like, a brutal sport, professional game. And I had absolutely no major goals, but in the back of my mind I was like, an Irish title would be brilliant, it would be class, and I was doing a lot of punditry as well. So I said, I'll be able to speak in the punditry kind of position, or the punditry role, with expert analysis as well. So once I got going and I got a bit of momentum going, I got a few fights under my belt, and obviously I won the Irish title, but I kind of felt like I had a lot more than I thought I did have. But I knew I was in a tough game as well, and so I pushed the bar out. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been telling everybody my goal is to become a European champion, and that can be like a very tricky thing to do, very risky thing to do, because we're putting ourselves out there to be scrutinised, to be either glorified or to kind of be slammed. And Reece, your last Reece McLennan, he's brilliant, and I was just listening to that interview, and I think it's important that we kind of, like, we set these goals for ourselves, but don't be afraid of announcing them and letting people know. And anyway, for me, look, it was a happy ending. It was I think the professional chapter in my life from 31 to 37, 6.5 years, has been a success story. I had some big fights, some big losses on big stages, but ultimately I reached my goal.
I know. I was like really, desperately concerned if you didn't make it, what the outcome would have been.
Yeah.
Do you know, because you did put all the eggs in that basket, and I think it would still have been a success story if you hadn't got if you hadn't won your last fight, because your story isn't just about trying to win the belt. Your story was you framed it as a redemption story, right? And that's because you were coming back from dark places. And whether or not you won or lost, that was a judgment on the night.
Yeah.
But the judgment on your life is that you've come back from those dark places.
Yeah. Yeah, like I've heard many people saying, like, you've already cemented your legacy or your name in the boxing history books from your amateur pedigree and your amateur career. And I'm just like,
you didn't buy it, did you?
No, I didn't, because I kind of felt like, even though I'm a European medalist as an amateur, and you're like, that's world class, that's a world class level, because the European continent is one of the strongest continents in boxing, so like, I just didn't, but I felt unfulfilled, especially missing out on the Olympics and everything. And then nowadays, amateur boxers, you can see them on YouTube. YouTube screen everything, But when I was boxing in the amateur days, I think I might have boxed on RT once or twice in the senior final. So there wasn't a lot of, apart from the boxing community, people in the boxing community knew exactly what I'd done. But the general public had no real kind of understanding. But now I kind of feel like, okay, I have redeemed myself, and I have shown, I have fulfilled. You know what I mean? Fulfilled.
So the fulfillment comes from the outcome, in a way. Like,
yeah,
and that's a separate thing, really, from like changing your life to the point where you're able to be the man you are now.
Like when I look at like growing up, like when I was an amateur, I looked at Kenneth Egan, I looked at Darren Sutherland, Michael Conlon, Paddy Barnes, obviously Katie Taylor, and I just thought, like, I'd never in the same bracket as them, because they were like achieving their household names or whatever, and I always kind of was like in awe of them, but at the same time feeling very sad and depressed because of my own issues, and I couldn't overcome them, or I couldn't address them. I didn't know how to seek out the help, how to ask for help.
What changed with that? Like, how did you fix that?
I suppose, yeah, that's a great question. I suppose you just get to a stage where you become overwhelmed by it, like that there is no, it's like a boiling pot, the lid just ready to burst, and that's what I was like. I used to suppress an awful lot of emotions and feelings, and you think you're doing the right thing, but you can't solve a problem by running away from a problem. The problem is not going to go away, but I realised that today. But I used to suppress everything, and then they would come out in a very unhealthy and toxic way, whether it's through drink or drugs or whatever, and it'd be just kind of, an explosion, a big episode, and then it'd be again try and regroup, and then another big explosion. But I realised, like, when I got to a certain stage in life, that these emotions, these feelings, these the energy inside, these are very much a part of my being in every way, like, and I cannot run away from them anymore, and I can't ignore them.
This wasn't connected to success or failure in boxing. This is like just real life, right?
Real life, yeah. Human
it's
life,
separate.
yeah.
It's
boxing was kind of in some ways a little bit of what would you say, a bit of solace in all of this, you know what I mean? It was respite, sometimes when I went to boxing I was free from the madness of my own mind, and free from the feelings, the emotions, and it just used to go into boxing mode, and then that kind of was a cover up.
To get to the point you are now, do you have to go back and ask what caused the madness in your mind, or do you just have to learn to cope with the fact that there is a bit of madness in all of us?
Yeah,
with
that's very true. There is a bit of madness in us all, a bit of good in the worst of us, a bit of bad in the best of us as well. But I did have to, first of all, take ownership. That's the first thing. Like, you cannot solve a problem if you don't see it, if you don't think it's there, if you don't acknowledge it, So I was in denial for a long, long time, with a lot of stuff, that I suppose I never really took full acceptance of what was going on for me. And I always blamed, in a way, I kind of directed it towards maybe different areas, different things. It was because of this or because of that, and then eventually I had to say, look, it's me, There's a famous quote from Marty Rubin, a Canadian author. It says, the truth is what's left when you run out of excuses, And that's what it was for me. And I was kind of left with my raw, vulnerable self. And then at that stage, you're kind of like, well, which way do I go now? Do I jump off or do I ask for help? And, you know, I asked for help, you know, and that was the beginning of a whole new avenue for me, a whole new life, a redemption story.
Are you allowing yourself a bit of nostalgia now, Eric? Like, are you thinking back in the last few days to walking into St Michael's Boxing Club in Athy for the first time? Has it just even hit you yet? Like, it's probably like winning the European title. It probably takes a bit of time to realise that you're retired and finished.
Yeah, it's really it's incredible. And even when I think back to the boxing club in Athy, what that done for me, like, you know, that was a real game changer for me. It gave me direction, it gave me purpose, it gave me, you know, it was my education, really. You know, it got me out of town. I definitely wouldn't have left Athy town if it wasn't for the club, you know, because, like I said, school wasn't an area that I really done well in. And, you know, Athy is a working class town. You know, education and sport are very important down there, you know, to really move out of it and do well for yourself. So the boxing club, even though at times it became an annoyance for me too, because I tried to run away from the club so many times because it was getting in the way of this, you know, the life I wanted to live with the boys and the girls hanging around and dossing and messing and whatnot. But that's when the coach Dom would follow me around, you know.
Would he literally come to your house?
Yes, he would, yeah. Pulled me out of a house party and everything before because I promised him I would fight in a show, you know, and I went missing, you know, and he pulled me out of his house party, brought me to the boxing show. So I even still boxed, you know what I mean? And I remember getting out of the ring. It was an open air show in Mullingar, and I remember getting out of the ring and I fell asleep in my boots and all my gear at ringside afterwards. But but like so grateful, like, and lucky that I had that kind of.
So I still think that I'm sorry to labour this point. You fixed something that most people don't get to fix, right? And so we're from the same town. I know what you're talking about. I know the corners that you would have been standing on.
Yeah.
And I know the school system didn't work properly for you. And I like, how did you survive that? Like, what?
Yeah.
Where's the bit where you get the strength to ask for help, or even know how to ask for help?
That's a good one. You know, I suppose. You know, I heard someone say before, the crack is where the light gets in, you know what I mean? And sometimes, you know, I put up a good fight for a very long time, you know, about like trying to hold on to this way, you know, and trying not to trying to deflect, basically, mainly for most of my life. But I remember many times, a lot of tears, a lot of really sad times, you know, especially sitting down with the family, like, you know, here I go again, how did this happen, and that kind of stuff. And
because you'd cause trouble.
Yeah, but like mainly the trouble would be just like my own really incompetence, like just really slipping up or messing up, and then I'd be devastated again, depressed, probably said something I didn't mean, probably did something I shouldn't have done, that kind of stuff. And then it always led to guilt, remorse, shame, embarrassment, and, you know, whether it was internal or external, it was all, you know, and it was just, I became sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I used to look at everybody else and think, how are they doing it, you know? Wanted to be like everybody else, like normally socialising, normally having a drink, going out, coming home, this kind of stuff, and it just wouldn't work for me, you know? Like, I couldn't do it, you know? Even like if I had one drink, I'd be just like, you know, wired, like, you know, it had a different effect on me.
And were you still living in Athy at this stage?
Yeah. And then, like, I didn't even realise, this is because you asked a very good question, I didn't even realise that there is support out there in the way that it was and the way that it is. Like, for me, it was just and if you can't sort this out yourself, you're screwed, you know? Yeah. And that's why at one stage I actually felt that maybe I'd be better off not being here, you know, because I thought, like, you know, I'm just a burden. I'm just letting people down, let my coach down, let my family down, and maybe I'm better off not being here. Like, that's...
And how easy it is for that to happen.
Oh my God, like, it's so very real.
And the other thing is that it's so common that, like, I don't know, I'm in our class there were people who died by suicide, and the town has been unfortunately plagued by it.
Yeah.
So it's right there. Like, there are examples of it, and that's why I think it's important to labour on this, because, like, it's possible. It's really possible, and there's so much in this story, you know. Like,
there's a lot in it. Yeah, and again, the boxing at the time was giving me the only kind of credibility and, you know, kind of respect that that I felt that was valued in me, you know, because outside
an identity,
and outside of that, like just felt like a nobody, a waster, you know, and that's a very dangerous place to be.
That's how society views people who are from working class areas.
Yeah.
That we decide as a country and as a people, no, there's no value here.
Yeah.
And like I think it's a real difficult place for us to be in.
You know, we talk about the footballers going across the water as well, like, you know, the sun, you know, promise, you know, the sun, moon and stars, you know, and then it doesn't work out for them, and after spending 4 or 5 years, maybe, you know, development years, you know, over there, and they're coming back, tail between their legs. What do they do? Feel like a waste, feel like a loser, you know. And that, for me, I had a kind of a very difficult relationship with boxing for a while, and with myself, because I kind of then was angry with boxing because I felt like I'm only a boxer, you know, and boxing would consume me to the level of, like, you know, who, you know, didn't know much about values and that kind of stuff. But when I asked for the help initially, Ger, it opened the door to a whole new avenues, a whole new world. I won't say it's easy because it doesn't happen overnight, but like that was the beginning of the process. You know, I started to learn about addiction. I started to learn about mental health, emotional health. I understood why we do the things we do. You know, why I kept doing the things I did, you know. And then I learned more therapeutic and holistic approaches to the self-destructive ones I was using before. And I was like, okay, this is a bit easier. And then during that process, you start to discover what Eric is. Eric, the man, the human being.
Yeah.
And I didn't care about boxing. But when I got back in touch with Eric and started to grow, really grow and develop, that's when I opened the door to going back to fulfilling some unanswered boxing questions.
So does this happen in your mid-20s? Like after, so the boxing finishes as an amateur and you're bitter about that. Is there then that period of like self-reflection or a despair, and then the self-reflection comes after that?
2012 was the time I went into recovery for the first time, and after that, the summer of 2012, I helped Katie Taylor out for the Olympic Games, went to the training camp in Assisi. When that was over, I kind of didn't know what to do. Threw my name in the hat for the World Series of Boxing, see what would happen. I got called. I got picked by who? None other than Kazakhstan. So, and the difference in Kazakhstan and all the other franchises was they wanted you out there indefinitely, like for the whole. There's no kind of train at home, go out and fight. So I went out there for like nearly 8 months or something, like, you know. And out there, I learned so much about myself, you know, because that was in the early stages of my recovery, and I had a lot of good support from back home, people calling me, ringing me, doing Skype calls and all that. But out there I really grew up, like I really.
So you're sober?
Developed, yeah, and it was incredible. And then when I got back from there, I kind of retired from boxing, unofficially went back into education. So I was 27, 28, going on 28 when I kind of unofficially retired, and then I was 31 when I came back, turned professional. But during that 3-year period, I did a lot of personal growth, a lot of development, and that's when I realised that maybe I can do something here. And you know, it's kind of crazy.
When you talk, Eric, about being like, you know, embarrassed or ashamed of your past or whatever, you're like, it's amazing because you're speaking to so many people who've felt that emotion, of which there are plenty as well.
Yeah.
But like, I've heard you say in recent times as well that you now see your past as an asset, which I think is that's just a emotional shift in your own thinking, I guess, was it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And most people that going around depressed, that would come from similar backgrounds or whatever, probably feel the same way as I used to feel. And message I try and get across to them is that, like, you know, you're not the. Who was it I heard saying this? I think it might have been Brezzy or Jerry Hussey or something that said, you're not the worst thing you ever done. You know what I mean? Some people go around feeling bad, like, you know, they might have made a mistake, or they might have, but like, that doesn't define you, you know. We're not responsible for the life we are given, but we are responsible for the life we are living. That's the key, you know. So we're all born into whatever, you know, whatever areas of life, and you know, you kind of develop skills to kind of navigate your way through that, survival techniques or whatever, survival skills. But when you get to an adult, you know, you probably don't need many of those skills anymore. You can go on a different route, or whatever route you choose, but you just have to be brave and ask for that kind of help and direction, and that's it. Yeah, but
I don't want to distill your entire career down to just a couple of minutes, but like, you've got the belt sitting in front of us here, and like that El Hadri fight, the 10th round particularly, I think for anyone who watches it back, I mean, that 10th round was just, it was manic. Like, is that the most defining? It's insane. Yeah. Is that the most defining few minutes of your career?
Yeah, many people have said to me after the fight, the 10th round, man, unbelievable. And I'm like, yeah, was it? Yeah, I did. Like, you know, I'm fighting on instinct. Yeah. So I had to watch it when I got home myself, and then when I was watching, I was like, oh jeez, like I know exactly what they're talking about now. And it's incredible. You know, I train so hard. Like, I train hard. Like, I put my body on the line all the time, put my body through the mill, the track sessions, the strength sessions, and you know, here's the thing as well. Over these last particularly this last year or two, I've been doing prehab and rehab before and after every training session, and it's so annoying. But that's at 37, I had to do that. So grateful for the physio, Vicky McGinn physiotherapy in Drogheda, Sean Kilroy, my strength and conditioning coach, and then obviously with Packy as well in the Celtic Warriors. Everything had to be meticulous, every single thing, and I worked so hard. So I knew it was in the bank. I always knew that there was one big performance in me. You know, I nearly pulled it off against Barrett. You know, it didn't get close against Ramirez. But I just knew there was something left there, because I knew that all of the work and all of the life experience and all, it had to be for something. And I was just so grateful that I could pull it off in that fight. And in that 10th fight, like, people looking at me were like, I thought they were on the verge of being stopped. But I didn't feel like that in there. Like, I actually felt like I was always in the fight. I knew it was tough, but I never felt like I was ready to bow out or anything, you know.
It's funny because you talk about it being almost a blur. Like, can you take yourself back into your head in that fight at the speed of thought, or is it a case of you just can't remember the entire thing?
I tell you, I was so relieved when I got there and when I won it, and I was really elated and buzzed, and all the people around me, my family, my wife, my children were there. They saw me getting, you know, really bad defeats against Barrett and Ramirez, and I used to tell them, like, you know, afterwards, you know, sometimes we lose in life, you know, but we have to keep going. And I try to always give them lessons of life through my own lessons, you know, and so they were ringside for this greatest victory for me. And my youngest son, Troy, 10 years of age, spot of blood come out and hit him on the forehead, like, you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff. That's how close they were, and I was just so happy to be able to do it, like, for them as well as, you know, like, even my wife, after the Ramirez fight, I didn't think I'd even box again. I spoke to Joe and I was like, you know, I could be done here, you know, but she had me to pick myself back up. Like, you set your goal, you know what I mean, you have to go, you know. So a lot of people helped me out, like, you know, and then of course you just have to keep picking yourself up and go again, and sometimes we don't know how close we are to actually turning a corner or making it work. In this case, you know, I was very close, you know. From the Ramirez fight was in February, this was September. What's that, 7 months or something?
Was there any part of you after the fight that was like, yeah, I'm going to go again? Or was it fairly quickly you were like, do you know what? Okay.
No, that's great, because like you wouldn't believe it, at 37, here I am retired, and I have so many opportunities and like possibilities if I wanted them, you know. And I'm like, where were you a few years ago? But anyway, like, even Punchestown Event Centre in Kildare, you know, wanting to host me. Drogheda United Park in Drogheda, wanting to host me, wanting to have a fight there. Incredible meetings and discussions and all of these great possibilities. But, you know, I think you can push your luck in this game, Jerry, you know. And I'm kind of like, at 37, all I wanted was this. I've got it. I had my greatest night. I can't top it. A 12-round war. Like, even with professional boxing, it's kind of like, we haven't really, like, in the back of my head, I used to always say, well, you're not really a professional fighter unless you've done 12 rounds, you know, because you have to do 12 rounds. That's the pinnacle, you know. And now I've done that, and, you know, I just don't think you can top the night I had. And I'm not naive, like, enough to think that my next fight you could end up on your backside, and you could bow out that way. And I don't, you know,
what's the point?
What is the point? You know, it's not money or anything like that. That's all I wanted, and I got there, you know. And I think it justifies everything I've done now.
You come in and you've got a pain in your hand still?
I do, yeah. My hand's a bit tender. People are shaking my hands. Well done, Eric. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them now, stop shaking my hand. I'm kind of like just doing this fist pump. And I'm in no rush to kind of get it looked at because I'm retired. But I got on to my physio a few days ago. I said, you need to refer me for or send a referral for an x-ray. So I'm waiting on the call now.
Right. But that's like also a sign to your body is like, that's
enough.
We're done.
Yeah.
We're out. We've had enough now.
Yeah, no, that's true. The body is screaming at me, like, over the last while. Like the Ramirez fight, I couldn't do a running session at all. I was on the bike every time. Like, and for a boxer, you need to be running. Yeah. Running is so amazing. And I just couldn't do it. I was on the bike and I was just so annoyed because of that.
Because of hips or knees or?
A tendon issue on the back of my right knee. Just that big tendon on the back of your leg. So that was the issue, and he used to just get me at the top of the calf, bottom of the hamstring, right there, just above and below the knee, and it was so annoying. And it's one of these things, you're getting loads of physio on it, but again, it's just wear and tear, the mileage. And but for the El Hadri fight, everything just aligned for me. I obviously had to do a lot of prehab and rehab, but it was like the gods were looking down on me for just this one final time.
It's perfect. I had a DM last night from somebody who I don't know, and I'm not going to mention his name. Hey, Ger, I should have mentioned this earlier when you had the Eric Donovan podcast last year. Some of the chats, I think Oisin McConville especially, stirred me to get the help I needed. He talks about another podcast and says, thank you, and whoever else for producing them. So much shit in the world, thought I'd say something positive here anyway. Like, that impact that you've had, you didn't know about, because he didn't know you were coming on today, and he didn't know you were going to be here for me to read that to you. Like, wow. That seems to be something that you've managed to build over the last couple of years. You go and you tell your redemption story. Now you're bringing a belt with you. It's like a very powerful force multiplier for everybody in the room. Yeah,
it's very overwhelming, and it makes you emotional when you think about that, because like a lot of people helped me out along the way, and I'm just trying to do the next right thing in my life. That's it. I'm just trying to put the right foot forward and do the right thing, and that's the principle I work off in life, is about doing the next right thing. And when I stand up and do these talks, I have another talk today. I'm heading to Cork today. After here, I'll be heading to Cork. So but when I do these talks, I do sometimes feel exposed. Sometimes it's different. It depends, but there is times I give a lot of myself. I do feel exposed afterwards, and I do be like, should I open myself? But then, like this, when you get these messages, you're doing the right thing. I know I'm doing the right thing.
It only lands with people if it's true, and if you have exposed yourself, and if you have shown that vulnerability. And I think that's why so many people rally behind you. And I don't know. Is there a book coming? I hope there's a book coming.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. There has been a few conversations, all right, about possibility, and I just said, well, it was before this belt, and I just said, I'm sorry, I can't write a book right now because there's a couple of chapters left to write, but we could possibly look at one now. Yeah.
What reaction do you get when you bring the belt into a classroom? I remember when I was a kid and Kevin McBride came into our classroom after beating Mike Tyson, and just you're just thinking, this guy's, it's madness. But you must have that reaction, because kids must look up to you now as just this otherworldly hero walking in with a belt like that.
Yeah, no, it's really special. It is. And over the last kind of number of years, well, especially the last 2 years when I broke into the European rankings, I used to do a lot of these talks, and I'd finish the talks by saying, here I am in these are the current European rankings, this is where I am, and that's my goal. My goal is to get to the top to win the belt. So for all the talks, I used to be doing that, and then I used to say to myself, God, if I don't get this belt, I'm going to be just left with the guy who made it into the European rankings. But I have now the screenshot of the latest EU European rankings, and it's the top champion Eric Donovan, before I was even in them, and that's, for me, it's just it's incredible.
It's a physical thing, to walk into a classroom for kids to be able to hold something and go, this is what he won. It's just...
Yeah, there's so many schools, there's so many groups now that I have to get back onto and to call into. There's just so many. I don't even want to name any because I leave some out. But yeah, I'm so lucky and grateful that this had an impact on so many people. Not just the belt, it's the whole story, as Ger said. It is a whole redemption story that has many kind of elements to it, and for me, I just love being able to kind of make people proud and happy, and to give them a bit of hope, in a life that can be very, very tough.
100%. So your identity is changing, obviously, evolving from professional boxer onto the next stage of your life. You have picked up a lot of knowledge along the way. there are some interesting openings coming up in Irish boxing. Are you interested in being involved?
I said this before, I don't want to confirm or deny, but like I will think I'll always be involved in boxing. You know, I think, and so boxing is my passion. I've so much to offer boxing, and boxing has given me so much. And I actually think that boxing is an amazing sport. Can do so much positive, so much good. It hasn't been shown in the greatest light over recent times, you know, and the people in the boxing, like even at the hierarchy, haven't done themselves any favours, you know. It's even like threatened to be, you know, removed from the Olympic Games, and that would be a travesty. It would be an awful shame if that happened. So, I mean, I'll always champion boxing, like, you know, I'll always kind of be an advocate for it, because I know that the work it does, and I know that the majority of people in it are good people, and and I said this before, they're not just boxing coaches, many of them, they're life coaches, and they help people so much. So yeah, I think I'll always be involved. I will say that as a coach, or in some capacity, I'm working as a coach already with Jude Gallagher, who's only 21 years of age, one of the brightest prospects in world boxing, not just Irish boxing. Commonwealth Games gold medalist. He's from Tyrone. Comes down to me, stays a couple of nights a week in Drogheda,
right?
And we train hard, and he is an absolute joy to work with, and he is a candidate for the Paris Olympic Games, and he can go wherever he wants to go in the sport.
I know you were working with the Gaelic football team as well, so you're involved at that kind of, or interested at least in working with people to improve performance.
Yeah, always. I love sport, you know, but I think there's a huge kind of correlation or connection between, like, you know, the mind and sport and the body, and obviously getting the best out of people is not always just training them to death, you know what I mean? It's sometimes just being able to connect with them and work with them and train smart. Like, that's what I had to do over the last couple of years. Not train hard, train smart, you know what I mean? And as a youngster growing up, I always thought it was train your heart, you know, train yourself to death. But you know, there's a smart way of doing things.
It's funny, Eric, like I think I mentioned the Al Hadri 10th round as a key moment in your career, like 2016 when you're turning pro. Like, for people who maybe don't follow boxing, they think, oh, amateur into pro, it's the same thing, it's the same game. But like, realistically, the amateur game, punch, avoid the counter punch, rack up the points. Like, for you entering that professional ranks, you know, you have to have that killer instinct. It's a totally different ball game. Like, do you almost separate your career into two halves almost?
Yeah, first half, second half. Yeah, it is like that. Amateur, professional, and you're right. I was so long a professional that, like, it took me, like, it was so hard, and I never really fully transformed or transferred into the professional kind of setting. But I did learn enough to win that last fight from Packy, from the times that we had. You know, if you watch my defence in that fight, if you watch my hands, they're up here. I used to be an amateur southpaw, slick. Hands were always down around. Even watch the Barra fight, my hands are down, and maybe that's why I got caught with the big left hook. But if you watch me against El Hadri, my hands are here for 12 rounds. But Packy had me training that way, you know. And after, at the end of every training session, we would do this thing where we would be for 2 rounds of shadow boxing in the mirror. I would start with 1 kilo dumbbells in each hand for 30 seconds, then drop then 2 kilos, then 30 seconds stop, then 3 kilos in each hand, and then go again back to, so it's a 3-minute round. And I would do that for 2 rounds at the end of every hard training session, and I'm telling you, my hands were just falling off me. But then if you watch the fight, the 12-round fight, my hands were here. Even in the 12th round, they're here. And that's what you have to do.
That's Wayne McCullough, right? When that Eddie Fudge talked about McCullough was going to make it, because he had that kind of. And I mean, obviously, protected him all the way to his incredible career. Loads of really nice comments coming in. He worked hard for it. Respect, says Mark C. JP Wright says, this guy's an inspiration to everybody. Eric, what about joining the Kildare backroom team? They could definitely do with it. Sean Mulhern says, Eric is such an inspiration. Every time he's on the show, it's brilliant. And Brian Slattery says, such a great speaker and an inspiration. Like, this is, you don't see the texts and messages that we get, but every time you're on, there is this outpouring of people just rallying behind you. I hope you feel that. Do you?
I do, yeah. I last night I listened to another kind of a tribute to me as well from irishboxing.com as well, and I was just kind of like a little bit kind of overwhelmed by that. I got a bit emotional, and my wife just be trying to tell me, you know, you have that impact, like, and I'm just like, I don't see that, you know what I mean? Because I think it was because of my own kind of imposter syndrome thing that I used to be dealing with most of my life, not feeling good enough or not feeling worthy or whatever. But I tell you, I am growing in that regard, and I do know today, and I can accept that I am having a good positive impact, and I think that there in itself is a huge step, in the right direction.
It is. You deserve it, though.
Yeah.
Like, again, the comeback is an incredible story. The book is going to be incredible. I hope there's a movie of it, because you deserve it. And like, I'm genuinely really interested to see what comes next, because whoever gets you, whichever aspect of Irish sport gets you, they're going to be incredibly successful. And I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't even know what I want to do myself, but that's not, I suppose. That's not saying that I have nothing to do.
No,
do you know
sure.
what I mean?
It's like, because you've got everything to do.
The amazing thing is that I'm very lucky that I can spend a bit of downtime now with my wife and my children, and my two older kids, Jack and Troy. They were up with us for the midterm and all, and just great. Like, it's a lovely, lovely time, lovely moment, and I do these talks, here and there, but it's not like every day I'm having to run out and leave the house, so I can enjoy a little bit of downtime. But I will kind of, I suppose, because I do know we all need to have a structure in our life. We all need to be involved, and so we all need to be working. So I will look at where, I'm open to options and discussions, and we'll see where it goes, I suppose.
I saw a quote recently where I think it was since your latest baby was born, where Laura said, "These are the best days of our lives."
Yeah.
And that struck me as something that, you do have time now, you can relax and unwind and enjoy these best days of your life.
Yeah, and that's it. They are, like, they're extraordinary times, and I think we should always really push the bar and step outside of our comfort zone. Like, we all know that. How many times do we all say, like, okay, life, stepping outside your comfort zone, that's where it's at, but we don't do it enough. I think we're all really we're all performing, obviously, but way below what our maximum, so take that risk, take that leap of faith, and just push the boundaries, and that's where I think that's where I think that's where you'll discover your true qualities.
Last one for now. I needed this today. Thank you, Eric, says Stephen in Dublin 3. I think everybody always needs a little bit of Eric Donovan in their lives. Congratulations, man. It's
pleasure.
It's a testimony to you and the hard work, and it's a great story. Thanks a million.
Sure, can I just say thanks to Off the Ball. You've been absolutely amazing. Championing me right from the very start. You rally behind me, and everybody I meet, people I meet in the street, they're always saying to me, "Listen to you on Off the Ball, listen to you on Off the Ball, you're brilliant on Off the Ball." Like, it kind of goes hand in hand, Eric Donovan Off the Ball. So did you say what was I doing next year? Was it? I want to joke. No, but seriously, honestly, I want to say that thanks very much.
You're
You've been
very
great.
welcome.
You've
been sensational the whole way along.